Hello everyone, welcome back to another talk. It's been a while, but I wanted to talk about the whole Hogwarts Legacy debacle. Now, originally I was planning on talking about this, and then the Act Man released a really excellent video covering this, and I did not believe I needed to say anything. I figured it would die down. This controversy is still happening, and in fact it's gotten extended by the release of Atomic Heart. I will reference that little debacle. But that isn't the focus here. The focus is going to be on Hogwarts Legacy, because the people protesting against Hogwarts Legacy are not doing so because they genuinely care about trans rights. I'll explain that in a minute. But I want to preface this by first saying that if you personally do not want to play Hogwarts Legacy because J.K. Rowling will get royalties, this is important, that is fine if you personally make that choice. But to harass others for playing a game you don't like is nonsense. Okay? Now, that earlier reference to J.K. Rowling getting royalties is the primary basis on why this angry mob, which is what I'm going to be calling them, they are not trans activists, but why this angry mob is so upset at Hogwarts Legacy in theory. Oh no, J.K. Rowling, who has issued transphobic tweets, is getting royalties from this. Yes, she is. Now, what this mob is then alleging is that anyone who plays the game is therefore transphobic. Now, I could go into a variety of different arguments as to how that is nonsense, but I'm actually going to stick to three. The first one, which is best actually depicted by a TikTok account called The Mighty Keef, points out quite accurately and very amusingly that this mob who hates this game on the basis that it is transphobic to provide royalties to J.K. Rowling is slightly more directly contributing to the revenue of Elon Musk, who has tweeted similar ideas to J.K. Rowling in terms of transphobia and owns Twitter, and this entire mob lives on Twitter. Therefore, by being on Twitter, they are supporting transphobia as well, by the exact same argument. Another example, a bit more of a direct one here, chocolate. A vast majority, if not outright completely, all chocolate is at least partially made by child labor. Children are going out and picking the cocoa beans that go into that chocolate. Okay? So, by extension of this same argument, anybody who buys chocolate is therefore supporting child labor. Same thing with Apple products. Not quite as directly as the chocolate, but child labor is still involved in that. Now, you can be forgiven for not knowing necessarily about the Apple product child labor. That was something we only found out in, I think, 2021. But the chocolate child labor we've known about for quite a while. So, no excuse on that, right? But that is the exact same argument being applied to a variety of different things, and there's more. These are not the only products that have some sort of ethical problem in their creation, right? However, the fact that this mob does not apply this logic to everything is the first indication that this is what I call moral grandstanding. But what you might know is better as farming for internet points if you're younger. Now, essentially, people like to believe themselves to be good, and some people like to perceive themselves as better than everyone else. Whether this is in terms of physical strength, mental strength, or moral strength, as is the case here, doesn't make a difference. As long as they can perceive themselves as better than everyone else in some way, which gives them a certain amount of power, and they assume a certain amount of authority because people want to listen to who they perceive as good. Usually when people talk about this, a lot of the times they are talking about someone who uses religion this way. Okay, a lot of people who portray themselves as highly religious do so to imply that they are inherently a good person and you should listen to them. Right? I've known people like this. However, in this particular case, it is a non-religious form of moral grandstanding where the basic idea is, well, I'm fighting for trans rights, therefore I'm better than you and you should listen to me. However, the problem here is that they are not actually fighting for trans rights, because if you actually look at the Twitter conversations, the entire Twitter debate, you'll see an awful lot of attacking of trans people in that debate by the people against Hogwarts Legacy. I have seen a number of tweets in which people who are against Hogwarts Legacy have put out a blanket statement where anybody who plays the game is transphobic, even if you are trans. I have seen trans people tweet out that they like the game and that to play the game is not transphobic, and they have been attacked by this mob who, again, claim to be interested in trans rights. So they are very, very willing to drown out trans voices if those trans voices do not agree with them. End of story. So this mob is not actually concerned about trans rights. This is not at all about trans rights. This is about a group of people who want to feel morally superior to others and created this fake argument to propel that idea. And through this, they assume power or authority over other people. Now, for some people, obviously, it's going to stop at just, I'm morally superior to you, and that's all that they care about. But there are people who, most of this mob, to be honest, because that's why they harass people on Twitch, most of this mob is looking for a sort of authoritative stance based on morality, right? That's, again, part of the reason why the harassment on Twitter is so bad, besides, of course, trolls hopping onto the bandwagon because it gives them a good avenue to harass other people. And obviously, the trolls don't care about trans rights, right? They're just there to harass people, and they're only taking the side of the mob because that is what gives them easiest capability. That is the shortest route to harassment potential. Okay? Now, there are, statistically, going to be actual trans activists caught up in this mob who are being swept along in the emotion of the argument, the emotion of the moment, whatever. But most of this mob is either trolls or simply looking to elevate themselves either in their own mind or in the minds of others, and thus also, incidentally, acquire followers based on their perceived morality. Now, this is not the only reason that this mob is protesting Hogwarts Legacy, since we have now debunked the first two claims. The technically second claim is that goblins are supposed to be a caricature of Jews. Now, this is actually more anti-Semitic for the mob to be saying, because this, as far as I can tell, and maybe I missed something, but as far as I could find out, this originated in a joke tweeted by an individual named John Stewart, who walked it back when he saw what the mob was running with this, how far the mob was running with this. And do I personally believe that goblins are intended to be a caricature of Jews? I do not believe this. Why? There are a couple of good reasons why I don't believe this. First off, J.K. Rowling has shown herself to not be averse to making controversial statements. If goblins were intended to be caricatures of Jews, I have very little doubt that she would be completely fine with coming out and saying so. Okay? The essential problem here is a number of things. First off, the mob... Well, the original joke was that, oh, they have hook noses and they work in banking, therefore they are caricatures of Jews. That was the bulk of Jon Stewart's joke on Twitter regarding goblins and Jewish caricatures. The mob then ran with this and continued to claim that goblins are Jewish caricatures. Now, I don't know how many Jewish people you know. I know a few. None of them have hook noses, and none of them are in banking. In fact, I don't even see how you can really connect that at all, personally. Sure, are there similarities to ancient German propaganda against Jews, to put it politely? Yeah. Way back when it wasn't even true back then. Sure. But the fact that the mob keeps harping on it is, frankly, as far as I've seen based on online dialogue, more insulting to Jews than the actual joke itself. You can take that for what it's worth. The third thing is that this buying or playing this game supports transgenocide. It does not. Because transgenocides happen in the Middle East, happen in China. These are terrible things. Well, I won't say necessarily transgenocides because trans people in these countries simply hide their identities in order to not be killed. But yes, I suppose you could consider that a form of transgenocide. This game is not supporting those, because in order for Hogwarts Legacy to support these, it would need to be funneling money into those governments. It isn't. Okay? The bulk of the money is going to the developer and the publisher, with a little bit going off to J.K. Rowling for royalties. The governments that are killing trans people are not making any money from this. And this mob, who once again claims to be talking about trans rights, they aren't talking about the actual problems of trans people in other countries, nor are they talking about actual genocides. Where is this conversation? Where is this passion for the Uyghur Muslims being encamped and killed in China? Where is this energy for the Tibetans whose culture and people are being piecemeal destroyed by Chinese authorities? Where is this energy for the women? This isn't exactly a genocide. This is more of a religious massacre. Where is this energy for the women dying in Iran? Right? There are real massacres, real genocides happening, and there are trans people killed in other countries just for being trans. Absolutely true. Why aren't we talking about those? Well, I'll tell you. The mob doesn't actually care. Now, a weak argument will be, well, trans people die in America as well. Yeah, there have been people who are trans who are killed just on the basis of their being trans. Very true. But there are always going to be people killed because of things that are out of their control. There are people killed for being black. Let's talk about that too. There are people killed for being gay. There are people killed for being a woman. There are people killed for being a man. You may not believe it, but it's true. It does not matter what group you fall under. Someone is going to hate that group, and you are a potential target as a result of that. Now, that is wrong. I am not saying that that is good, or that we should be supporting that, or that we should be ignoring that. We should not be. We should be talking about it. However, that is still not a trans genocide happening in this country, because as the case of Brianna Gay in the United Kingdom shows, she was murdered, at least primarily, as far as the evidence goes, because she is trans, or was trans, right? And that is a shame, that is a terrible thing. She should not have been murdered at all, obviously, but the authorities are pursuing that to the full extent of the law. They're pursuing it as a hate crime, again, as far as I know, based on the last bit of information that I saw. If trans people were actually facing a genocide, that would not have been investigated. Now, I'm using a UK example here. Let me bring in an American one that's recent that this mob is not talking about, that they really should be if they actually cared. I believe it's Missouri is attempting to suppress trans rights right now. And there are people standing up and talking about it, people standing up and protesting this, people bringing attention to this problem. If an actual genocide against trans people was happening in this country, nobody would be talking about that. Nobody would be standing up for trans people. The fact that we do have people standing up for them is the clearest form. Yes, there is resistance to trans people. There is prejudice against trans people. Very true. There's prejudice against everyone in this country. It's terrible. But there are people standing up and fighting for those rights. And in an actual genocide, that would not be happening. Alright, so to make this genocide claim is, first off, minimizing the real problems of real genocides happening across the world. And they are happening out there. And secondly, it's sort of lumping the finer points of the problems confronting trans people, not only in America but across the world, into this incorrect term, at least for America. And this obviously is hyperbole, right? This is a gross exaggeration in order to further enhance the morality of the anti-Hogwarts Legacy position. Real moral arguments do not need hyperbole. Newsflash. If something horrific is being done, genuinely being done, you don't need this hyperbole. The fact that this hyperbole exists is yet another indication that this is, in fact, moral grandstanding, because there is no actual moral position here. So, in order to make the moral position seem more real, they bring in the horrific word genocide. Except it's inapplicable here. At least in the context they're using it. Again, there are countries in which trans people are killed legally, and that is terrible. America is not one of them. If a trans person is murdered, that murderer is pursued to the full extent of the law. Sure, maybe in some areas they don't do quite as hard of an investigation, say in more conservative parts of the country. That is true, but they still pursue it. Okay? It's still murder here. It's still a crime. On the books. Which it isn't in some other countries. Now, this is why I generally have no respect for anyone who is harassing others for Hogwarts Legacy, or claims that Hogwarts Legacy is this paragon of villainy. It is not transphobic to play Hogwarts Legacy. It is not anti-Semitic to play Hogwarts Legacy. It is not supporting genocide to play Hogwarts Legacy. These are all arguments created by people who want to feel morally superior to others and chose the easy target. How do I know they chose the easy target? Well, look at Hogwarts Legacy. It is a video game. And of course, everyone knows that mainstream media has a fondness for targeting the video gaming sphere. So, for moral grandstanders, this is a really easy target, right? Oh, Hogwarts Legacy is terrible because this, and this. And it's a pretty safe assumption that the mainstream media will be on the side of this moral argument, this fake moral argument, due to the simple fact that it's a video game. But these people can't make the same accusation for more direct sources of funding for J.K. Rowling, like the books. Why? Because that would involve targeting something that the media is not as willing to attack. Let me give an example. Also, side note, by the way, before I get on to the example, let me actually also point out that to target Hogwarts Legacy does not inconvenience this mob in any way. It does not have any impact on their lives whether or not they play Hogwarts Legacy. So to be enraged against Hogwarts Legacy is costing them nothing. Now let me move on to the example because that is related. Amazon sells the Harry Potter series, the whole thing, and various Harry Potter merchandise. These are all more direct sources of funding for J.K. Rowling. Well, the merchandise isn't, but the books are. The books are very directly going into her bank account. Why isn't this mob protesting Amazon? Well, I'll tell you. One, the media is not concerned with what Amazon sells. The media is concerned with the problems between Amazon and its employees, for good reason. That is important. But they're less concerned with the kinds of things that Amazon sells. Sure, every once in a while you get an article on, oh, this thing is a scam or whatever, right? Amazon has a problem with certain kinds of sellers. Also important, but the Hogwarts series, or the Harry Potter series, is not one of these, right? And the mainstream media is not about to attack people buying books. It just isn't going to, right? That's a very bad look. So this mob obviously realizes that they aren't going to get internet points by attacking Amazon over the sale of the Harry Potter books, but also because to boycott Amazon is to cause inconvenience to them personally. Real activists don't have a problem giving up things for actual moral reasons, but the fact that this mob is unwilling to touch things like Amazon, things like bookstores, over a more direct source of funding for J.K. Rowling is yet another clear indication that this is not about trans rights. It isn't. So, at the end of the day, anybody who claims Hogwarts Legacy is transphobic, anti-Semitic, and or genocidal, I have zero respect for these people. None. If somebody personally does not choose to play Hogwarts Legacy, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I can respect that. That is your decision. Go off. It doesn't make logical sense if you're not also boycotting Amazon and a variety of other things, but go off. But if you start harassing other people over Hogwarts Legacy, or any game really, that with this level, with the uselessness of these arguments, I have no respect for you. Zero. Now, personally, I intend at some point on purchasing Hogwarts Legacy and playing it. Will I record that? I'm not sure yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If I don't, it is not due to fear of backlash. I'm going to be very honest. I really don't care about the opinions of the bulk of humanity, right? If you've been following me for a while, you know that I am not too emotional. I have emotion and all that, but I'm not overly emotional. I don't really get caught up in the emotion. I pursue things on the logical basis. And a lot of people's opinions of me just really don't matter, right? And that's easy for me to say because I am not that emotional, but a lot of people are emotional. It's more normal for people to be emotional than lean more on the non-emotional side, and it can affect a lot of people. Right, again, people want to see themselves as good, so when they're being attacked by this mob, it can get very hard to maintain this self-perspective of goodness. Even if what the mob is saying isn't true or is based on a farce. So it's easy for me to say that it doesn't matter or whatever, because from my personal perspective, based upon my personality and my approach to life, yeah, it is easy to say. It is easy to do. It's not the same for other people. And especially since, secondarily, I'm not approaching YouTube as a career. This is a hobby. This is something I do for fun. I don't intend to pursue this for monetary reasons. Will I make a little bit of money off of this by circumstance? Yeah. Right, ad revenues are probably going to give me some nice lunch money at some point. Right? That's fine. I'm not going to be, going for sponsorships or anything because I just don't care. And to be totally honest, that's just how I'm approaching YouTube. But there are people approaching YouTube and Twitch from a professional standpoint. They are trying to make a living on Twitch and YouTube, so public opinion does matter. The audience opinion of that person does matter. You might think, well, no, it doesn't. It does. It can really drastically affect your ability to rake in the dough. Look at YouTubers who have been canceled. Now, some people say that canceling YouTubers doesn't work and that a lot of YouTubers have gotten away scot-free and whatever. That isn't really quite true. There are ramifications for a YouTuber to be canceled that does affect them. I'm going to take a couple of examples of YouTubers who have been canceled for what I consider legitimate reasons. Lion Maker, targeted children, Minecraft YouTuber, does not have a channel. I don't think he's successfully made a comeback. I know he's made attempts. I don't think any of them were successful. Gone. No longer in a position to harm children, not making money off of YouTube. Mini Lad, also targeted children, also did so via his fame and channel, in his channel. So basically via his channel. While he still has a channel, the audience has greatly diminished, and it is a constantly rotating audience of children, right? Still a concern. I still have concerns there. And I would say that he is probably the least... he was probably the unfortunately the least canceled, because he still has an audience primarily of younger people, which again concerns me, but as a result of that, and because of the nature of his content now, it is a cycle where his audience stays fairly static. His audience numbers stay fairly static as people leave his audience as they grow out of his channel, basically, and new ones of the same age range move in, at least until the preferences of the youth change away from that type of content, in which case he'll either have to change to maintain those numbers or finally drop off. Cryotic, also targeted children. Also, as far as I know, doesn't have a channel. Maybe I missed something recently. I think I've seen a video or two talking about how he got away with it and everything, but as far as I know, he no longer has a channel. He is no longer making money on YouTube, right? There are times when cancel culture is needed and significant and important. However, the Hogwarts Legacy debacle is a great example of the fact that it's not always useful. It's sometimes a farce, and this is going to be an interesting conversation that I'll be having more in depth later on in terms of cancel culture, because that is changing, fortunately and unfortunately, both at the same time. But at the end of the day, again, while it's easy for me to say that I can ignore this controversy, which is why I don't have a problem making this video, right? I'm not looking for the money, and I don't care what public outcry there is. Doesn't matter to me. But I'm saying this not only from the point of a less emotional person, but also from the standpoint of someone who is not approaching this professionally. Someone who is approaching this professionally, who by nature, because they are creating on a professional level, they are personality-wise more likely to be an emotional person, which benefits this content creation sphere as a career immensely. This is not a criticism against emotional people. I don't want to come off that way. Emotional people are great at content creation a lot of the times. It really helps creating that rapport, creating that connection, right? But these people are, being more emotional, are going to be more affected by such comments than they are, again, looking at this as a career. And to have this kind of thing happen can be damaging to a career in content creation, which is the whole problem here, which is also why the mob feels so empowered, right? Because a lot of the people they're targeting are people, they don't accidentally target people, by the way. The people they target are the ones who are very much looking at this as a career, period. Just by me saying this at the end here, a lot of anybody who... Okay, let's take a member of the mob and say they watch this video. They're going to be mad because I'm calling them out on things that they're going to obviously deny, because that defeats the purpose, right? I call them out for moral grandstanding. That defeats the point of moral grandstanding to point it out, so they're going to get mad and get defensive and aggressive, right? If they don't watch the video all the way through, they're going to leave a comment. It's going to be ugly, it's going to be negative, and I don't care. If they watch the video all the way through, they won't leave a comment, because, quite frankly, I have now laid out why it doesn't matter if they do or not. And they're not going to bother, because they have no power over me, nor will they ever, because their whole argument is that because they are protesting Hogwarts Legacy, they are a morally better person. I don't buy into this. Therefore, they have lost the ability to gain power over me via that avenue. So they aren't even going to bother harassing me, because it's not going to work. So it's going to be very interesting for me, and this is why, by the way, I'm putting this at the end of the video more than anything else, is because I want to see how many of these lunatics watch the video all the way through to the end. People who aren't protesting Hogwarts Legacy might listen to this all the way through. Again, I primarily construct these for listening purposes. But a lot of people, when something makes them angry or something upsets them, they don't finish it. So it'll be really interesting to see how many of them actually care enough to finish it. Just a little experiment. So with that being said, thank you very much for listening. Have a great day.